Hello everyone, welcome to Trekyards Mission Briefing, a weekly dose of Trek ship discussion. It can be canon, not canon, side canon, fan canon, invented canon, theorized canon, not canon at all. That's
pirate
most
canon, parrot canon. No.
I mean that just cannons with one end or two. I don't know. Anyway, Stuart, what are we looking at today?
Today we're looking at a very cool ship, and one that I've liked for a long time. It's actually from a game, Star Trek Invasion. It is the Typhon Class carrier.
Yes.
Now, I've learned quite a bit about this ship since we started to prepare for this episode, and we'll get into that when we start talking about it. But a great-looking ship and a cool idea to have a carrier, a fighter carrier. So, yeah.
So this came out for the PlayStation 1, 22nd of August 2000. So 16 years ago this was invented. Sort of in the high days of Star Trek, you know, the movies were coming out, Enterprise was about to come out, Voyager was just finishing or just finished. But can you take us back to remember when you first saw it? Did you play the game? Did you have the game? Did you see it online? Talk to us about it.
I had the game. I got the game right away.
Ooh, awesome.
Any Star Trek games, I like to eat those things up. I love them. So grabbed the game, and it was very kind of a lot of fighters and stuff. I wanted to fly the bigger ships. I wanted a game like Bridge Commander before it was a thing, or Starfleet Battles kind of thing, Starfleet Command, which eventually became, but this was very cool. It was neat, and I still have the game upstairs. I should actually go try playing it again.
You should. Now it's worth saying this specific version is the Star Trek Armada 3 game mod version by Max and his team. A specific version was given to me by Chris Knight, who did the model and the Valkyrie and all the different fighters. I converted it to the light rig and got it all ready for you. So this is not the exact version we see in the game. This is their sort of modified and slightly less detailed version. But I've used it to go for the scale and take these general pictures to just to give you a sense of it, and then I'll be pictures later on of the exact version. So disclaimer there, guys. But yeah, I remember seeing this one. I believe when I started modding games with Armada 2 and such, I remember seeing it as being like, oh, that's interesting. And I had the same impression. Well, I never played the game, first of all. I've never had a PlayStation, so I never could. If I went back now, I'm sure I'd think, oh, geez, this is PS1. But I have the same opinion that I had then. This works. And it's so bizarre it works, because it's Star Trek. We've literally just had this episode come out. It's not all about fighters. There are controversies if they should or shouldn't. We see fighters, but they're both effective and ineffective, and there's a whole thing about them. So I always thought a fighter carrier made sense. We see Peregrines and other things that made total sense. But how do you design that? And I thought the guy that designed this, it still has a Star Trek vibe, which is so weird because it's just a box, but it's a cool box. And the way the engines are there and how the fighters launch, it's so interesting. And I loved seeing it in the intro cinematic, which is the only thing I've really watched of the game, and it fits in the fleet. And I loved playing Armada 3, and I wish we'd seen it in the show. And I can't wait to do a full episode on it to see it at Warp and do all these things and just yeah.
I agree, and it was cool seeing the 3D model of it, especially when we get into some of the other details about it, which we will very soon.
Yes.
But anyway, do you want to move on to the next picture? Or?
Yes. This is the front of Invasion. Who are they fighting? I don't even know. Looks pretty cool. I like their very stabby fighter thing.
Stabby.
Great cover. Seriously, that's absolutely wonderful. And I can see why you bought it. Yeah,
it looks like Cylons coming in above the ship there.
Yeah, it does. Well, I remember hearing from a few of the fans when I talked about we're doing this that this doesn't the cover you couldn't tell it's Star Trek, and I agree. If you took out the blue and red grills, it wouldn't be Star Trek. There's nothing that really gives it away. But once you really delve into it, there are those things partially. But let's jump right to the next picture. We see an aft shot. Now, disclaimer on this model, for the game, the design for the game version, those two impulse engines in the actual model in the show, in the game, I should say, they are aft fighter launch bays, or at least fighter in bays. Because the ship had no impulse engines, they decided to make them impulse engines with the glow. It actually, I think, really works well to have impulse engines there. But just a really interesting ship. I really dig the design. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. Like I said, it looks like a big box in a way, but at the same time, the design works for me. Yes. And one thing I've always had in my mind about this ship is that it's huge, but we're gonna
Yes.
get into that later.
And as Rick has said to us, Andrew has said to us, have all said to us, sizes depend on the scale on the windows. The warp engines can be as big as you want, but I worked hard to work out the scale. We'll talk about that later. These sort of abstract. But if you go to the next picture already, then you see the retractable launch bays. That I believe are both.
Oh, they slide up.
Yes, the whole ship
awesome.
can go into a thing called fortress mode. We'll get into that later. There are sketches we have, but it's got four launch bays. And I specifically lit them so they're nice and bright, so fighters can launch from the bottom. So warp in, 5 bays would go down, then come out the sides, out the front, and just launch a hell of a lot of fighters, which I think works really well.
That's interesting. I didn't know that it had that. I really like that feature. Not sure if that's really practical though. I mean, what if the mechanism that lowers it kind of fails?
Well, I mean, you could say that with Voyager's warp. In the cells, and obviously if that breaks, you can't go to warp.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah.
Just seems overly complicated for what it needs to be. That's all. They should just have doors on the side, have hangar bays at the side of the ship.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But if you go to the next picture, this I love seeing. They actually did release some sketches for Invasion, the game. So this is the actual what it's meant to look like. And straight away you notice that it's very detailed. One we have isn't as detailed. Hasn't got the all the panel lines, the escape pods, all that stuff. This is the concept they had. What do you think?
Well, I'm drawn to something immediately, and that's on that view of the top, or I guess I don't know if it's the bottom or the top.
It says dorsal. It says underside ventral, dorsal top above them. So.
Okay, so that's the top. It's got like a launch craft there, like a larger captain's yacht kind of fighter thing, which is neat. Yeah, these are really cool. The detail on them is absolutely incredible. Yes. I like how the engines are cantered in. The top is like this, bottom's like this, whereas the model that you are using, they're kind of straight.
Yes.
Which I don't think looks as good. I think it looks better like this, for sure.
Yeah. One thing I noticed when I dissected this previously is there aren't any real escape pod hatches on the top. But if you look at the bottom, there are a whole set of hatches on the bottom and things, little things like that. Because obviously, where do you put everything? I mean, I don't see any visible phaser strips, but there are RCS thrusters. It's like, where is everything in this design?
Yeah.
But one thing you'll note, if you look at the side shot, there are launch bays, 4 and then another 4. So that's I assume that's how you launch, because obviously it's a fast response craft. I mean, you warp in, you launch everything from the side. They then come back in the front 2 bays, which are either fly through hangars or 2 separate bays. There's also aft bays. So this is meant to launch, I assume, dozens and dozens of fighters and be able to bring them all back in very, very quickly. Because half of the struggle is getting them back in. I mean, how many times have we seen Battlestar Galactica where they're in a fight, and obviously when you say bring the fighters home, well, now there's no defensive. All you've got is the main cannons. But suddenly, if all the fighters then coming out of the Galactica, all those nukes are coming in, you've lost that shield. So if you don't get the fighters in quick enough, you're taking quantums in this case. You're taking disruptor hits. You need to be as quick as you can. And obviously, if you have set other bays, maybe the aft bays are for the runabouts, and the bottom and the side bays are for fighters. Different size of ship because they all have different functions. I mean, can you imagine this thing warps in? You have 20 fighters, 20 Valkyries. That's a primary. And then you have 8 runabouts providing the torpedo cover and just that bit of extra punch. I mean, that I think would make a lot of sense. Or recovery craft, work bees. I mean, it's kind of overcomplicated in the sense of how many bays it is. But if you think about what the ship is, and we see a thing in the video, the intro title sequence, it's basically just a big open hangar, the entire middle. I mean, it really is just a hangar. It's crew quarters, bridge, engineering room, hangar. That's its function. So, what do you think about having so many launch bays?
Well, it makes sense because that's what it's for. It's a rapid response and execution vehicle. It's meant to get out there and deploy a lot of assets really quickly. Yeah. And
it says armored mobile fighter unit. That's what it says it's called.
And again, this speaks to the whole registry number issue. You got the registry of NX 85808.
Oh, I didn't see that. Cool.
Obviously, again, this points to the fact that it's not necessarily how many ships were made with the registry number. I think each different class of vessel has its own kind of unique designation. And this could be the 85th design by Starfleet. That's why it starts with the 85. So, Yeah,
quite possibly.
Point that out because the registry thing has always been an issue that we talk about.
Yes.
So.
And we'll talk about something a little bit later, but if you notice on the top above Typhoon, it says non-fortress mode. So there's a picture of it later on, but the two hangar bay, the extruding parts, they go into the ship. And if you look at the bottom bit, you can see those, vaguely triangle parts. I'm assuming that's part of the gears that pull it in. Because it's an armoured ship, the assumption is it launches, it retracts everything, even the warp engines retract into the hull a bit. And it can take that punishment. I mean, what would you want from a fighter carrier? You want armour, shields, fighters. I mean, the fighters are the weapons. You want torpedo launchers, I'm sure, but you don't necessarily need to get... Well, to be fair, there are phaser arrays on top. I did just see them there next to auxiliary craft. There are phasers. There are docking clamps. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So I also love the big Starfleet Delta on the front, on the right-hand side. I think that's cool.
Yes, and on the bottom, below the hangars, the huge one. Yeah, they really went like, let's paint this proud, guys. Yeah. I'd love to see this as a fully rendered model with all the detail. I think it would be absolutely amazing to see it. And they did make a full 3D version for the game. And it actually looked pretty good. We'll see pictures of it later. I really would love to have that version. Obviously, long lost. And there's two versions. The one in the game is really rubbish. The one in the cutscene is really good. But we have a fan version for this. But yeah.
Awesome. Well, let's go into the next picture. And this is what I was talking about.
Yes.
The size chart just blew my mind. I thought this thing was a lot bigger.
Yes, there's very interesting ways to think about this. Now, I have a very distinct rationale for why I did this. And this took me literally 2 hours to work out the scale. Which you might think is a bit wasted time, but I like this ship and I want to make it definitive. Because building a light rig, you've got to have the definitive scale to make the lights work properly. So it feels like a huge ship, true. And this is obviously just the top. The side actually gives you a different perspective. But I think we talked about this previously. You thought it was at least double the size, or at least a third extra size. I mean,
it was at least double the size, yeah.
Yeah. But the fact is, the fighters that it uses are small. Mm-hmm. And the ship is literally just a big hangar. It doesn't need a lot of the other things. It has no science labs, no anything else. If you go back to the last picture, I was very precise about this. This is the one concept authors we have, right? If you look next to the side view, you can see the Valkyrie actual size. That is the size of the fighter. Now, Chris Knight gave me his Valkyrie model. Again, it's all rough, but what I did is I took... Because, again, this was based on real sizing. I took the Battlestar Galactica person in a Viper, built to the correct size of a 6-foot person, put that into the pilot seat, roughly, we know it's a one-person fighter craft, of the Valkyrie, worked out the rough scale of that, then compared that to a Type 9 shuttlecraft, the Voyager one, which allowed me to work out the exact length of that fighter. And it was not the size that any of the online sources said. We know it's a one-person craft. We know it's a very small ship, so that I'm totally comfortable with. So I worked out the size of that. Then I brought that into this picture, scaled it down, and then scaled the Typhoon to the fighter. Now, interestingly enough, the only scale chart you actually have in the entire sense of the ship is the intro cinematic with the Enterprise E. The ship actually launches from the Enterprise E, so it's less size than Enterprise E. That's fine. All the scale charts later on seem to think it's bigger, but we know it's smaller. I scaled it to what I thought it would be, but when I worked out this scale, again, this is the actual scale, it was actually quite a lot larger than I thought. And then I took the model of the Valkyrie and put it inside the hangars, in terms of the outer doors and the fighter craft launch bays, and it can launch out with space. So I'm very confident to say this is the correct scale, because the fighter is the right size, they're the right size compared, and it can launch the fighters at that size. So I have said I'm very confident to say the definitive size for this ship is...
Here we go, guys. Drum roll.
335 meters.
Ding!
Which you can see is roughly the size of Voyager. Now, you might be thinking, wow, the Defiance is so small, has so few crew. Like I said, it just is a big bay, That's the purpose.
Well, yeah, there's lots of hollow space in there.
There's a lot of hollow space, and that's the function, and I'm very confident to say that's the size, and I'm pretty proud to say I managed to work that out. So what do you think of the scaling now compared to the fleet?
I still think it's it just seems too small for me. But I totally get why it's that size. You need bunks for your pilots, you need a command center, and you need just a bunch of empty space for the hangars or for the fighters to sit. So I'm actually fine with it. It makes a lot of sense this size. But yeah, at first glance, just the cover of that game, I just thought, well, this thing's huge. You know, you think carrier, you think big, and this just kind of surprised me. But I love your thought process to figure out the scaling.
I was on Skype with Rob Bonchoon at the time, working out, so we sort of worked out together a little bit, because I had to confirm, he looked on BSG, is this fighter scaled correctly? Yes, it is. And literally, I tracked it from the size of a person. Mm-hmm. It's obviously rough, but it's not going to be far off. And all the scale charts were quite a lot further off, so I'm very comfortable saying that's the full version. But if you go to the next picture, I think you'll actually like it better now, because the length is one thing, but look how thick this ship is.
Like I said, it looks like a brick almost from this side. But yeah, I can see that. It's as deep as a Nebula class.
Yeah, exactly.
Height-wise, so.
And if you consider the shuttle bay on the E, the big sprawling one can have, over a dozen shuttles. And that's just that size. You think how huge, 10 decks hangar tall? That, if a fighter's 2 decks, you can easily have a bajillion fighters. It's not about the length; it's how deep it is. Just the scale of the ship. It is a pretty big ship. if you sit next to an Intrepid, it would still feel big and not very imposing. But it's for a specialized ship. I think this works really well, and the scaling. I think it feels like a fleet ship, because if it built any bigger, it'd be more of a target. Like, you don't want it to be necessarily the target. If you had to send 3 or 4 of these in a support craft, they fit in the fleet, and other ships are flying around, but it's got that purpose,
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think from the side, this size looks a little bit better. But from the top, it's very deceiving, I think.
And it makes sense warp engine-wise, because then it fits to roughly the size of the Intrepid, which is appropriate for scaling.
All right, so next picture is a great shot. This is the one they used for the cutscene, is it?
Yes, this is the real one, and you can see the side launch pads. You can see the extra detail, all the hull plating. They had a nice model. There are other pictures in a few seconds with it, but it had a real nice vibe. I think the model.
Mm-hmm. And again, this one looks amazing. Like, the windows look great, and actually, if you base the size of the ship on the windows like we tend to do, this makes perfect sense. Because if those are the size of the windows on the Galaxy class, they're probably 5-6 feet tall compared to people. So yeah, 2 decks in the middle there. It really shows the size. Plus, the way those warp nacelles are is much better than just straight up and down.
I agree. Although it breaks all the rules, but looks damn cool. Looks damn cool. And I like the idea that this ship is likely.
It doesn't break the rules, though. Hold on, I gotta say, each side has a pair of engines that have line of sight.
Oh, interesting.
It's like, so it doesn't break the rules as far as
so the engines don't connect to their opposite; they connect to their adjoining.
They just need a pair. They just need pairs. It's a pairs rule, right?
Yeah, it's constellation. There you go, perfect. So I think the way this ship is probably designed is that the outer ring that we see with the windows, that's probably all the living quarters. So like the outer part, like I would guess, because everything moves, the outer bit, the grey, is all armor. The outer bit of the black with the windows is a living area. The front section has the labs, anything you need, and then all of the middle is just a hollow bay.
Well, you got to think too, with that many fighters out on the go, there is a bigger command center, probably much like in the Battlestar Galactica. Instead of a bridge, I think there'd be more of a command center kind of style.
Absolutely, yeah.
That'd be somewhere in the front there, I would assume.
Deep Space Nine. Although I do see in the previous schematics there is kind of a bridge module at the front, but it is at the front at the top. Yeah, kind of like Defiance. Well, some people say the bridge is in Defiant at the front, but it's not. It's in the whatever.
Well, they could have a bridge and then be multi-leveled, so that the down below is the control center. The bridge is up top, so the bridge can see everything that's going on in the command center.
To be fair, makes the most sense to have a bridge to control the ship, command center to control fighters and
coordinate
orders.
The fighters.
Yeah, you'd need to have dedicated things. You wouldn't want, tactical officer to be worrying about the shields of the ship and the 12,000 fighters. I don't think that would work.
12,000.
But you know, I mean, I do want to just quickly say the previous scale charts are all based on the real models used in the real show, so everything is accurately scaled. That's why I'm confident. I scaled it accurately to a Type 9 from what you know. It's all just a disclaimer there. But if we go to the next picture, not very high resolution, but you can still see this is the top view, I believe. No, this is the
bottom.
This is the bottom view. Lovely detail. I love the hull. I love how it just I really want this model and get it made in this detail because it just looks so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can tell it's actually quite simple as geometry, but actually most of it's just flat with stuff painted on, and they didn't follow exactly the details of the sketch. There aren't phaser strips at the bottom. There aren't escape pods. Looks like, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it looks good. I do like the detailing on it. It's not overdone. I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
And again, that speaks to the smaller size again. You don't have a lot of detail on smaller ships. If it was bigger, there'd be a lot more cluttering and things on the bottom there. So
it's true. But I mean, you've got to realize that those fighter bays, that is also a sense of scale. I mean, you're not going to launch if you launch 4 fighters from each. This ship also needs to be compact. So it's launching 1 fighter from each bay, and it. Yeah.
Cool. And on to the next picture. This is a view of the top.
Yes.
You can see that, the very Defiance styled front end there with the bridge kind of set in a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, is that the bridge up there, or is this the bridge in between the two things here? Maybe that's the control center and for the fighter coordination. Yeah, could be.
Yeah, my assumption would be the middle bit would be the bridge, just to follow other Federation design. The front bit could be, like I say, command and control. I really want to go back into the game and watch a cutscene seeing the ship go in fortress mode, because I don't really see how it can do that exactly.
Like I said, I haven't played it in a long time. I need to go back and try it out again too.
Yes, you do. And the next picture is a fan Elcar style cross section I found. Obviously, this could be anything, could be whatever, but I thought it'd be interesting to see. You can see in this version, big. Well, good point. But the deflector is internal to the ship. You've got the launch is literally just a panel down. It goes into the bays. Some can be launched either sides.
So this is 21 decks, not including the 2 lower shuttle bays or bays there. Voyager's what, 15?
15, yeah. So that's. I mean, I'm looking back. It's roughly more. Yeah, that would fit.
I guess that still works. Yeah.
But it looks as if there's way more. I mean, obviously you're seeing a side view, so you're seeing the outer edge of the hull. You're not seeing the inner shuttle bay, and I think it's underestimating. Although I like that there are the Type 11 shuttles from TNG. You've got, or the TNG movies. You've got the Argo. You've got the buggy. And I love the warp core. That's the entire ship, and I do see the ship as needing a lot of power for shields and good warp. Obviously, it's not doing too much else, but I would think this would have very powerful shield array. I would guess it would have at least sovereign level shields, and for a ship of that size, that would be impressive as hell.
And it's worth noting too that there's a fore and aft facing photon torpedo launchers on this thing. So okay, so let's move on to the next picture, and this is what, fortress mode? Yes, fortress mode. Okay.
Yeah, this is summarizing how it is, what it does.
Everything moves out.
Yeah, it's very Battlestar Galactica in the top view.
And there we have it scaled with the Sovereign.
Yes, which is that's how it's deployed. It's literally connected to a Sovereign, or at least in the episode we saw, or in the thing we saw. And if you look at the scale chart I did, and if we cut back to that, that's, I mean, it certainly could launch. It's not too far off. Yeah, that's about right.
Good job, man.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I based it on their scale chart, so I mean, I did it based on things. But I like the idea that having a fortress mode, like it, you because you don't be at warp with these open doors. It's flying as this fortress.
Yeah.
Come out of warp, everything launches. You launch fighters, you retract. It takes a punishment, and as soon as you need to repel, it all comes in. I mean, I'm guessing the warp. It looks as if the warp coil, the warp engines might retract and have armor placed over them. So literally, you can't damage the ability to go to warp at that point. I mean, that'd be a great idea. I mean, imagine you take the Defiance of blade of armor and Prometheus of blade of armor to the next level. You give it, 2 feet of a blade of armor. Imagine that.
That's interesting. Yeah,
Actually,
it kind of curls up like a turtle to protect itself.
I mean, you've got the... I didn't realize this, but the orange indicates where it is when it's in normal mode.
Yeah.
I mean, everything pulls in. I didn't think that everything retracts into the ship. Wow, that is really interesting. Yeah, how? I don't understand.
Yeah.
That is... Wow, okay.
It's interesting. It's very interesting. I'd love to see more of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But if we go to the next picture, this is a fan version. This is Simon Marino's next step version, and this is the ginormously huge. It's the same design, but he's added that third nacelle on either side, and you can tell the scale. How can you tell the scale there, Stuart? What's
Defiant? The Defiant being pooped out the back. I noticed that right away. I was like, this is not the same scale. Because this is more what I pictured initially when I saw the ship. This is the scale that I thought it would be.
This is his super carrier, and I wanted to point this out because it's a great little. It's the same exact ship. In essence.
Why is it still called the Valkyrie class?
Oh well, whatever. I mean,
the other one's the Typhoon class, I guess, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Valkyrie is the name of the fighter. So yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw this in there for well done for his hard work to make a version.
Awesome. And those 3 engines look good like that. I love that. That is cool.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I do dig it. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, let's go on to the next picture, and this is the last picture. Yes. And this is from Armada 3, A Call to Arms. This is a beautiful beauty shot of this thing, with the fighters in the foreground, and wow.
I love it.
I love it. It's awesome.
Yeah, I just wanted to say again, thank you very much for Armada 3 for giving us the model.
Yes.
Both Max for making the introduction to Chris, and then Chris for giving us the model. Obviously, I had to build the light rig and convert it and stuff, but without your hard work to have the model, we couldn't do a show like this and really show it as we should to the fans. If we go to the last photo, just the start photo, just to show it all its glory. That is the Typhoon class. Closing thoughts, Stuart.
Well, this is a fan favorite ship for a lot of people. A lot of people absolutely love this thing.
And a lot of people don't know it exists.
I was just going to say that. Don't steal my lines. I was going to say a lot of people don't know it exists. So, welcome to the Valkyrie class, or the Typhoon class. The Typhoon class, everyone. This is, like I said, I've always liked this ship since I first saw it. Although I did initially think it was much bigger. I've learned something. And that's what this show is all about. Even we learned stuff during the course of this show. So
yeah, it was very satisfying after 2 hours to be like, this is the size.
Yes. And he was quite eager to tell me. He's like, look at this scale chart. And it's like, oh, Voyager, what? But yeah. So, no, it's great. I would love to see more of it, like I said. And I'm glad we could share it with you guys. I mean, I think it's a great looking ship and a lot of potential, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And this is, we covered, the Excalibur, a fan favourite. We've covered this, a game ship. There's another game ship that's going to be coming down the line. Because some of these amazing it's an officially licensed game, but it's not actually canon. But some people know about it, some people don't. But with a lot of the fans out there who've made models and through doing it for a Lightwave, getting a light rig, you really give them a whole new life in terms of quality. I love bringing them to you guys, making them feel more real and just, highlighting the great work that lots of other teams have done throughout the years. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and that is it for this week's Trekyards Mission Briefing. Tune in next week, and if you want to support the show, because guys, we need the support to keep the show coming to you. It's not, rent isn't free, bills isn't free, electricity isn't free, internet isn't free, So if you want to support the show, help us keep it coming to you every single week. Either do a one-time donation over at trekyards.com, click that donate button and put in whatever you can, or go to Patreon, the YouTube donation service for thousands of YouTubers out there that want their people who watch the content to actually support them to keep making the content and get perks as well. So go over to patreon.com/trekyards and give on a monthly basis, even $5. If 100 of you give $5, that's $500. So be one of those 100 and give $5. That'd be amazing. And obviously tune in every week for multiple shows. And just keep enjoying our ugly mugs every episode.
Speak for yourself, man.
Wow. So until next time, this is Commander Cockins.
And Captain Foley.
We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.